and then we had some little sprouts that we had ordered. I think that's what they're called. I don't know. They were already little plants. We had some herbs going, and we got those as little plants, and those are beautiful and doing wonderfully. And then we sprouted some from seed, and yeah, out of the several that we did, we just got a handful, but it was enough to get into our little garden. And we have a compost pile going, and by next year we'll have a bunch of compost to kind of add into our earth. We opted not to get the potting soil and just deal with what we had here this year, but then starting a compost pile so that next year it can have more nutrition, and we'll just see kind of what goes well here and what doesn't. It's our first garden in New Mexico, so it's very exciting. And I think that this disruption to the food distribution and toilet paper, I think it has people thinking. I think it has, like you said, where is this food coming from? Should I have some backup? Should I maybe invest in a large quarter of a hog or a cow and put it in my freezer just in case? And I think it has people at first paranoid. You know, you got all the toilet paper being gone forever, and it has people kind of like going into their scarcity roots. But I think after that chilled a second, I think it had everyone reflecting in certain ways, and a lot of people reflecting at least, one of which is what you said. What if there's problems in the future? And it's really not what if, it's just when, because there's going to be other disturbances, so we might as well have that victory garden and maybe even make friends with our local ranchers, even if we don't buy a cut of meat from our right that second. Just knowing people that we can kind of outsource to locally. There's this amazing meme around Facebook, and it's one of my favorite ones, and it's got this old woman with her hoe out in front of her garden, and it said Grandma made it through the Depression because her supply chain was short and her something was excellent. I think it was her bartering skills or, you know, her cooperation or whatever it was. It was another beautiful thing. But I thought that was so cool how they brought back to the awareness of in the depressionary times, we did have to do things differently, and that just keeps us more flexible and on our toes and not just expectant and not so blown away when things do happen in the future. So keeping the supply chain small and then being flexible, I think that's the best advice I can give for the next decade or two.
Totally. I love that. I actually had a conversation yesterday with my partner who asked, why is it that meat is more expensive in the grocery store right now, but we're having to let pigs and cows rot in the fields or whatever, compost piles. I don't remember exactly what he said. And I kind of just looked at him and I realized, he doesn't know. Like, we have a 4-tier system when it comes to getting that cow to your plate. And I don't realize that people understand like how complicated we have made it to take that chicken, cow, pig, whatever, from that farmer to get it to you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for those who don't know, you know, Farmer Sue is going to, you know, raise that pig, and then she's going to sell it off to the processing plants who are going to slaughter, break it down into all its little piggy parts, and then the processor is going to sell it to a distributor. So think, you know, any of the food distributors that supply them to grocery stores or hospitals or schools. And then the customer, the end user, you are going to go into the school, the restaurant, the hospital, or the grocery store and buy that. So it's literally touching 4 separate steps before you put it on your plate. And that's not necessary. You know, I saw something where people are like, just go to your farmer and take it to your local butcher. And I was like, that is ideally what you could do. But in most cases, if you go to Farmer Sue and ask to buy a pig, and then you take that live pig to the butcher, they're going to look at you funny. Like, they're not set up that way. Now, I think we might see an emergence of more butchers that are willing to do that. And I know where I'm from, a small kind of agricultural area in upstate New York, I did have a cousin who went to school for ag, and he had someone that would butcher chickens, cows, you know, whatever, and that we would then buy like a quarter of a cow or something from him directly. But it wasn't like your local town butcher that you just like brought your pig into. Like it was a specialized service where he'd go to the farm and kind of do the butchering, which is great. But like if we actually want to buy direct from our farmers, then we need to start making more of an initiative to do that, because it's not as easy as just going to the grocery store. And it may be as easy going to your farmer's market, but again, like you said, like there are a lot of food deserts out there, and not all farmers markets are equal. Like I've been to a lot of farmers markets, and some are like astoundingly good, and some are just like, okay, I could get any number of like 10 of the same things here, you know, like it's strawberry season, so there are 10 booths selling strawberries, you know. Whereas others, you could go and get milk, you can get meat, you can get, you know, produce, you can get candles, honey, mushrooms. The Nashville Farmers Market is actually pretty good. And the Memphis one I remember as being really, really good too.
Have you been to Chicago or Chattanooga?
I have been to Chattanooga, and it has a wonderful variety of farms, but also like makers, which is really nice. I remember it was hot when I went. It was not air conditioned in there.
It's under a pavilion, yeah. So
yeah.
It's a kind of outdoorsy experience. Get a little sun off your shoulders, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. But again, these are all metropolitan areas. So those that aren't living in a metropolitan area, or if they plan to do their shopping outside of the 5 or 6 hours on that Saturday or Sunday that most farmers markets are open, not everyone can get to them at those times, right? So even our farmers markets are limiting people's ability to access that type of food.
I've seen a little bit of organization on Facebook from some of my friends, and they'll say, anyone in this location, for example, someone near me in Albuquerque, he's very political and wildly entertaining. We've had him on one of our other shows here, Lee. He posted, okay, friends, anyone near where does he live? Las Vegas, New Mexico. And he was like, anyone near Las Vegas, New Mexico that wants to go in on some meat at a local rancher, I got a connection. We just need to find a butcher and we're good, and we can fill up some freezers. And he had people coming out of the woodwork. He even said he had people that weren't even his friends commenting on that one. So I'm like, man, people are into it. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes to change those wheels and retool that system. Like you said, it was going through 4 hands. Let's cut the middleman, cut down on moving it around, and maybe even on price a little bit, and get that a smaller line there, a smaller chain of command. So I do think that farmers markets are great. I also think that you might not always find them on the internet because they might be small, but just a little word of mouth can get you a lot of places looking for farms in your local area who might also butcher and slaughter the animal as well. Oftentimes you can find small places that will do it all. You just got to do a little footwork, and this is that responsibility that Sarah and I were talking about. It's out there. It's just not going to be handed to you. Got to search around a little bit. And you might have to drive an hour or something to pick up that meat, or maybe they'll deliver it and pay a little price for it or whatever. But either way, you're cutting out the middleman. You're getting local sourced meat. It's being it's about as fresh as you can get it probably, and you're helping that local rancher out. And they're probably not being able to get rid of a lot of their meat because of these. The movement is down, or the processing down, or the 4 stages, like you said, are kind of in chaos. So these ranchers want to sell their meat. They do not want it to go bad. They do not want to have to waste it or whatever. So seek out your local rancher, even if you have to find a butcher along with it. Often the rancher will know someone who does that kind of work simply because of the line of work that they do and the people that they know.
I also want to plant a seed here, because when I was in D.C., which you wouldn't think as being like an overly agricultural area, because it's not, but it did tend to have enough affluence, I think, and people who were concerned with the local food movement. I was in the restaurant industry there, so that was the local food, local, organic, sustainable. They're all buzzwords from about a decade ago when I was in the restaurant industry. And I managed to find, and I don't even remember what it was called, but it was I'm going to use the term CSA very loosely because it was not a standard CSA, but it was a woman who was a food advocate even to this day. She put together this membership program. Bless her. If anyone, I'm planting a seed here. If anyone else is interested in kind of following this woman's footsteps, I'm sure I can find the program. And she basically went around to a bunch of local farms, met the farmers, got to know them, toured the facility, right? Because you want to know your farmer. You want to know that they're raising their food, they're raising their animals in a humane way. They're feeding them, in a way that helps them avoid infection and, illness and all of that. So she took it upon herself to go visit all these farms, the ones that passed kind of her personal inspection test and were willing to kind of work with her in the way that was necessary for this particular membership. They would then kind of come up with a standard offering. So let's say Farmer Sue has pig. Like, she could always offer these things. And, they were like pork chops or, whatever it is, that she had available. And then she went and she found there was honey. So you could get like bee products, bee pollen, honey, beeswax candles, maple syrup. These are all different makers. And there was lamb, there was a kimchi maker, there was eggs, obviously, raw milk, which I know, here in the South we call it dog food or whatever, like animal food. But I'm a big fan of raw milk. And there was beef, there was all sorts of like farm fresh stuff. And you would go online every week, there was a certain window, and you would choose what you wanted to order, and then she would place all of the orders to all of these farms. And nice. There was a drop-off house. It moved every once in a while because I don't know why, nor did I care, but it was very it was very CSA-like in that there was a drop-off day, and then you would go and you would dig through these coolers. There would be like one cooler for me, and you would have your printed order, so you'd remember what it was you'd order, and you would bring like your grocery bags or whatever, and you would just fill up on butter, kimchi, meats, whatever it was that you bought, and then you'd go home. And it was like the coolest way because it saved me a ton of time because I didn't have to run to like a bunch of different farms. I was always working on the days that the farmers market was open in BC, so that wasn't really an option for me. And it was all super, super fresh. And it was not cheap, but it was super easy, and the food was amazing. And so I remember when I was leaving BC, that was like the only thing I knew I would miss because, I'd have to start all over down here. And so the closest thing I found down here is CSAs. But as you know, like those are usually like fruit and vegetable boxes, or like a meat box or something. It very rarely gives you kind of the full range of all the options.
That's something, maybe I'll put a bug in someone's ear and they can organize that type of business and
I'm hoping.
rally up all the local ranchers and get us nice boxes of stuff. I'll take some kimchi and some raw milk and some eggs, fruit and vegetables. That'd be great.
Right?
Oh, that would be so wonderful. And then it would make it convenient, like you said, in order to get the honey, in order to get the kimchi, you're running around different parts of the area. It could take you a week to get all that stuff in your spare time, running to different places each day. So that made that really convenient. How nice. Maybe that'll pop up a little bit more. We're going to run to a quick commercial, and then we're going to come back and talk about full-time moms trying to work full-time from home. So we will be right back.
You're listening to Third Eye Political Radio, and we really appreciate you joining us. And when you have a moment, why don't you check out our sister station, Heart Over Ego Radio, where we offer a lineup of shows that are guaranteed to raise your vibrations and guide you into your best life. We offer shows on Sundays, Everyday Psychic Radio, Mondays, The Alchemy Sisters, Tuesdays, Radical Spirituality, and on Wednesdays, All for One is Love. And then we close out the week on Fridays with Rain Radio. Amazing shows produced for you 5 days a week, only on Blog Talk Radio. That's right, it's our sister station, Heart Over Ego Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Downward Dogma, and you're here with Sarah and Jennie. And our topic for today is the future of business, which we just finished that segment. And we're going to be moving on to full-time mom entrepreneurs, which we have a very special guest today, Sarah, to talk about that. She's here every week, but she'll have the specialty scoop on this. I'll put my 2 cents in. I don't have any kids at home, but or have any kids at all, really, in this time frame continuum. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and